The unfaithful wife got her comeuppance when the affair partner revealed his true nature as a liar and stole her savings. My wife Anna is 36 years old and female, I am 39 years old and male, and we have been together for 7 years and married for 5 years. Like any other couple, we have had our ups and downs, but I believe our relationship is built on a solid foundation of trust and love. We both have regular jobs, and although we are not rich, we are content and happy. A year ago, Anna's interest, or passion, if you like, in personal finance took an unusual turn. She started reading books, watching YouTube videos and even attending seminars on the subject. I supported her newfound interest and saw it as a positive step towards improving our financial situation and securing a better future for us. To be honest, I have very limited knowledge of finance, and my understanding of financial matters is quite superficial, except for basic investments such as mutual funds. Even when it comes to mutual funds, I don't invest in them except for mandatory tax-saving plans. I come from the marketing industry and have very little knowledge of finance and tax-related matters. Like many other people, I rely on tax consultants. A new era of financial influencers has emerged on social media. Anna also became interested in learning about finance, and she wanted to understand the stock market and cryptocurrencies. I had some knowledge of the stock market, as it had been around for a long time. Cryptocurrencies were a field far beyond my understanding. I did attend a few virtual seminars with Anna, but the concepts discussed were completely foreign to me. Over time, Anna began spending more and more time with a wealthy investor she had met at one of the seminars, whom we will call Dylan. She described Dylan as a mentor who guided her through the complexities of investing and wealth accumulation. The concept of mentorship has become increasingly popular in the US, and many people now identify as mentors. Furthermore, Anna eventually stopped contributing to our household expenses, claiming that she was investing in our future and that I should not complain. I accepted her claim and continued to manage all our household bills alone. At first I didn't think much of it, but over time their relationship started to cause me serious concern. Anna began spending an inordinate amount of time with Dylan, often late into the night. Her explanation was that, due to her daytime job, the evenings were the only time she could pursue her passion. When I expressed disapproval, she became defensive and belittled me. I have a limited understanding of investing, and she mocked me, saying that one day she would make us rich and I regretted not supporting her. I support her in every way I can, and she expects me not to question her whereabouts, return times or activities. I try not to interfere, but I must remain vigilant when she shows obvious signs of danger. She has also started to change her dress code, opting for more seductive outfits, but I don't object. I've never commented on her clothing choices before, so I remain silent this time as well, but she begins to neglect our relationship, prompting me to express my concerns to her as usual. She denies these concerns, claiming that everything she does is for the safety of our future and that I should support her instead of criticizing her. Gradually, I drifted further and further away from her, because I was tired of carrying the burden of the relationship alone. I thought she would notice the change in my behavior, but she remained focused on studying the complex and completely forgot about me. Apart from being roommates, we had nothing more to do with each other and only spoke when absolutely necessary. Despite living under the same roof, we rarely spent time together. After her day job, she would go to seminars or mentoring sessions. One evening, I passed through the seminar hall where her financial mentor, Dylan, was giving a class. I went in on instinct to investigate. As soon as I entered, I realized it was a completely different activity. I asked the security guard about Dylan's company seminars and how often they were held. They told me that such seminars were not held very often, and the last one was a few months ago. As I left the hall, I noticed a few young people wearing t-shirts with the names of financial influencers. I approached them and learned that they were advertising enrollment in a financial master class for everyone. I gathered all the relevant information. The influencer himself held seminars every 2 to 3 months, while the tutoring sessions were hosted by mentors like Dylan and the cafe. They also clarified that the classes were not held every day, but once a week from 7 to 9 p.m. Anna was always home after midnight. I obtained the details of the cafe and left the next day. I asked Anna if there was a class that day, and she replied curtly, "I have classes every day." Based on the information I had gathered, I said nothing. The class that day was only held on Saturdays, and it was Thursday night. After work, I stopped by the cafe and saw her sitting intimately with Dylan's hand on her waist and his lips pressed against her cheek, as they spoke in a low voice. I observed them exchanging flirtatious glances, and my heart sank. I kept my distance to give myself time to process what I had seen. I tried to film the video clip because I expected that she might play down the situation. I stayed there until they engaged in more intimate activities. He even licked her ear and made other inappropriate gestures. When they were about to kiss, I recorded everything. I approached them and sat across from them at the table. Anna froze, while Dylan seemed confused. I introduced myself as her ex-husband, and he laughed. Anna offered to explain, and I encouraged her to do so. She claimed it was a one-on-one tutoring session, and I sarcastically replied that he must have been providing hands-on guidance. Dylan left the table, laughing to get out of the situation. He acted like a player. I asked Anna directly if she had slept with Dylan, and she admitted that she had, but argued that it was part of an investment deal. I couldn't understand what kind of deal that was. She tried to rationalize it, claiming that it was all about her personal financial education. She said that Dylan had assured her that she would make a lot of money after completing the course and meeting his demands. I asked what demands he had specifically made of her, and whether they involved sleeping with him. She answered yes. I realized she was trying to save face, so I urged her to make up an excuse, but I continued to pretend, asking if she had gone against her will. She clarified that it was consensual. I accused her of getting pleasure from it, and she retorted that she did, but only to secure our future. I lost my temper, yelled at her and questioned who gave her the right to secure our future. I told her she didn't have to worry because I was perfectly capable of managing it. My outburst attracted the attention of customers in the vicinity, who stared at us. I stood up and left the cafe, and she followed me outside, trying to grab my arm. I shook her off and told her that she could continue her relationship with her mentor, but she was not welcome in my home. I went home feeling heartbroken. My trust in her had been completely destroyed. It was hard to accept that she had concealed her infidelity under the guise of learning about personal finance. A few minutes later Anna returned. She insisted that she was not having an affair for pleasure, but to learn about finance. I asked her to leave, but she pleaded with me, insisting that she had not cheated on me and that there was no relationship between her and Dylan, just a purely business transaction. I was confused about the type of business she was in. I told her that there was no need to get intimate with a mentor to learn about personal finance and that she could gain knowledge without taking such actions. She became angry and asserted that I would prove her wrong. She entered into a mode of wanting to demonstrate her earning potential and declared her intention to get involved in influence marketing, criticizing my lack of understanding of the importance of early investment. She predicted that I would retire on a meager state pension while she became a billionaire and that I would regret my decision. I told her that she was free to pursue her ambitions, but not with me. She packed her bags and left. 2 days later, on a Saturday, she returned. I was reclining on the sofa surfing the internet when she said to me, "I'm not here to apologize or beg, I'm here to collect the rest of my things." I remained silent and she gathered her things and drove off. Her actions showed that she had absolutely no remorse for what had happened and that she was prioritizing her affairs over our relationship. I have already discussed this with my lawyer and am ready to initiate divorce proceedings. I hope that it will go smoothly and without unnecessary hassle, as we have no major assets to dispute and the divorce process should be relatively straightforward, but we will see. I will provide an update once everything is over. Now I would like to give a brief update on my divorce. There have been no major developments worth mentioning apart from the divorce proceedings, so this will be a concise update. Many people have commented that Anna's so-called learning about personal finance doesn't seem legitimate and is more of a scam than a real investment. While I may not be well versed in finance, one thing is clear: when someone promises quick and substantial returns, it usually means something. Earning my money has indeed been a challenging undertaking that doesn't produce immediate results. Nevertheless, I have put this chapter behind me. My divorce was finalized last week, and it was relatively painless. As I mentioned before, we had no major assets to dispute. We live in a rented apartment. Our incomes are fairly close when it comes to alimony. Furthermore, since she cheated, I am not obliged to pay any alimony, and we closed the joint account and divided the money between us. Since we have no children, there is no need for child support. I'm glad we don't have children, otherwise the situation would have become very complicated. I now understand why many Americans hesitate to have children because of the uncertainties, but things are not as simple as they seem. I still have a hard time getting over her infidelity. She told everyone that when I became rich after mastering my personal finance strategy, I would crawl back to her for reconciliation, and I just said good luck to her. She spread the word that our divorce was because I was insecure about her progress, that I was controlling and jealous, etc. I endured these comments with a smile as long as possible, and then showed everyone the video of her making out with Dylan. She blushed, and mutual friends quickly reconsidered their loyalty. The last I heard, she was living with her mother during the divorce proceedings. She shows no remorse for the damage she has caused. I'm not sure if she's actually learning about personal finance and investing or if it's just an excuse for her affair with Dylan. If she manages to sort her finances out, that's a good thing for her. I'm not interested in wealth gained through infidelity. Incidentally, I've recently started watching a lot of videos about investing, and although I may be jumping to conclusions, I think there are plenty of free online resources that provide enough information for beginners. I strongly doubt that it is necessary to hire a tutor for this at this point. I try to stay away from conversations involving her, as they have a negative effect on my mental health. I have rekindled my love of painting to keep myself occupied. I have also joined a fitness club to lose weight and focus on eating healthier and drinking less. Gained significant weight before divorce. Hi everyone, first I would like to share some interesting news. I would like to thank you all for your support and the valuable links you have provided regarding investing, which as many of you have pointed out, has been very helpful. It really is a scam, so that's the highlight of the update. Remember, the financial influencer who hosted the seminar turned out to be a fraudster who stole people's hard-earned money, promising them a handsome return. Anna also invested around 30% of her income in the scheme, hoping for a lucrative return. Not only that, I heard she even sold some of her valuable assets, such as the family heirloom diamond ring and platinum necklace, to bet it all on this investment. Everything about Endeavor seems to be a scam. The influencer is now on the run, while his associates, including Dylan, have been arrested and an investigation is underway. After the news broke, Anna became the butt of everyone's jokes. She had bragged to everyone about her imminent wealth, flaunted her newfound knowledge to all and disparaged those with limited investment expertise. After the revelation, everyone Anna had mocked is now turning the tables on her. Naturally, one of our mutual friends told me that she has blocked most of the people who made fun of her. She has also deactivated her social media accounts, which is not surprising given that people tagged her in posts related to the financial influencers she endorsed. This is a lesson in not counting eggs before they hatch, which is exactly what she has been doing. As for me, I have made significant progress. I have lost the extra weight, am currently focusing on muscle training and I am enjoying the process. As I mentioned before, I have rekindled my passion for painting and it has been a very fulfilling experience. I am not in a hurry to start dating, not to forget the past, I just am not ready yet. Last month, things took a dramatic turn. Just a week after my last update, I had an unexpected visitor. It was Anna and she looked very depressed. She explained that she had fallen victim to a scam. Dylan and his fraudulent influencer boss had defrauded hundreds of people and fled to different countries with their money. I asked her about Dylan's supposed arrest. According to the last update, she told me that Dylan and several other so-called mentors who were close associates of the influencers had managed to escape in due course. The remaining team members were arrested without the main culprits. I asked her if it was because Dylan had fled that she had come to me, and she insisted that was not the reason. She claimed that she still loved me and wanted to sit down and talk. I reminded her that we were divorced and that any conversation would be pointless. Her response was, "I have been punished by karma. I have lost out in every way, people are laughing at me and making fun of me. You have come out of your predicament triumphantly, what more do you want? What more do I want? I want peace." I had hoped that she would leave my life, and at that moment, I wished that she would leave my house, that was all I wanted. She then said, "Now that you know there is nothing between me and Dylan, and there is nothing between Dylan and me, we can get back together, and if anything, he would take me with him, right?" I replied firmly, "No," I explained, "he would not take her with him because he had countless women like her sleeping with him, learning dubious money-making techniques. After all, he could not take all his promiscuous partners with him, could he?" She implored me to consider reconciliation, asserting that she was not emotionally involved with Dylan and admitting to being attracted to the idea of getting rich quick. I made it clear that reconciliation was not an option. I had come a long way by then, so her plea had no effect on me. I might have considered it if she had asked for forgiveness when the affair came to light. However, after witnessing her true character, I was not sure I could ever trust her again. She lost everything in the divorce proceedings before returning to me. Has no remorse. Now she's come back to me, which is unbelievable. I told her I had to go to a fitness class and that she needed to leave. She commented that I looked younger and healthier and asked if I was seeing someone. I told her it was none of her business. She started crying and accused me of rudeness. I retorted that she should be grateful for my politeness and for listening to her, after all she'd done to me. I had loved her deeply, but my indifference towards her had surpassed that emotion. A few days later, her mother called me and asked to meet. I asked why, and she said it was urgent and important, and not suitable for a phone conversation. The next day, I asked her out for coffee, and she apologized on Anna's behalf. I hugged her and told her it wasn't her fault, so she didn't need to apologize. She had always been very good to me, in contrast to Anna. During the divorce proceedings, she restrained herself from saying bad things about me. She asked if I would be willing to reconcile with Anna because she deeply regretted her actions. She often cries and is depressed, and she fears that Anna will end her life after losing her savings, as mentioned in previous updates, losing part of her monthly salary and some precious jewelry. I did not know that Anna had also lost her savings. Anna has always been a saver, and I am sure she had at least $100,000 saved. Losing such a large sum of money could cause stress for anyone. I asked how a reconciliation between us could help her cope with the depression caused by the financial loss. She thought Anna truly loved me and that even in her terrible situation, she could at least find happiness in having me by her side. I admit that I felt some sympathy for Anna and I was briefly swayed to consider a reconciliation, but I quickly returned to my original position and decided not to take her back. I told her that I couldn't do it and that I no longer loved her. This caused her to cry again and plead with me to help her daughter overcome her depression. I remained firm in my decision and suggested that she take Anna for treatment, as she needed counseling, not a husband. My ex-mother-in-law was disappointed that I had rejected her plea, but understood my point of view. Another factor that may have further unsettled Anna was my investment journey. I started following genuine financial YouTubers, who greatly helped me understand personal finance and investment at both the macroeconomic and fundamental levels. This knowledge played a crucial role in building my investment portfolio. Surprisingly, I have already made a considerable profit. At the moment, I'm dabbling in the stock and bond markets. Cryptocurrency trading is still beyond my understanding, and I don't want to explore unfamiliar territory. I'm in no hurry, I'm taking things one step at a time. Understanding the stock market has made me more convinced that making money doesn't happen overnight, it requires patience and courage. I hope to come out of this experience stronger. As for dating, I don't think I'm ready yet. Okay, that's an interesting story, now let's move on. Another exciting story, stay tuned, let's move on to story 2. I am 40 years old, and my parents, my father is 63 and my mother is 60, have been married for 43 years. I have 6 siblings, an older sister who is 42, an older sister who is 38, an older sister who is 34, and 3 younger brothers who are 20, 20 and 18. My husband, a 39-year-old man, has been with me since we were 15. I got pregnant when I was 17, and we moved in with my parents. I gave birth to my daughter, now 22, and we got married when we were 18. Shortly after the wedding, my grandfather died, leaving his ranch-style house to my father. My parents built a house next to my parents' house after they retired. My parents decided to let us live in this house and told us that it would be my inheritance. My husband and I had no objections to this arrangement, and we later had 3 more children, 2 boys, one 20 and one 14, and a girl, 5, and I am currently pregnant with our last child, a boy, due in April. I consider my marriage to be very strong. We have intimate contact more than twice a week, go on regular dates, exchange gifts, and rarely argue. However, my world came crashing down on New Year's Eve when I came home early from a girls' trip with a few friends, walked into the bedroom and found my mother having sex with my husband. My mother shouted at me to leave their bedroom, which shocked me even more. Unfortunately, my eldest daughter was also home and was preparing for a party in her bedroom. She ran out and saw her almost naked mother running from our house into her house, slamming the door. My daughter broke down and went to my sister's house. I told her not to say anything until my husband and I confronted him, and he admitted that my mother had seduced him when we were 18 years old, and they had had unprotected sex at least once a month for longer than we had been married. I calculated the timing, and the result shocked me, which meant that my twin brother and youngest brother could be my husband's children. I immediately called my father and asked him to come to my house without my mother. My husband confessed in front of my father, who was very shocked because my mother and I were high school sweethearts. When I confronted my mother, her screams could be heard from her house. Then I confided in my sister and we decided to throw a party for the whole extended family, inviting my ex-husband's family as well. I asked my 22-year-old daughter to take all the children to the basement to watch a movie, leaving only the adult children and siblings. I explained to them the whole story. Most of my family, except for my 3 youngest siblings, my 38-year-old sister and my ex-husband's entire family, think I'm a big nuisance because I made the whole thing public and the news got around. My mother's best friend, who held a leadership position in the children's church, called to confirm the story, as a result of which my mother was removed from her position as children's pastor at the church. She claims that I have basically ruined her reputation and her life, and my father asked her to leave and is currently living with my 38-year-old sister. Furthermore, my father insists on a DNA test for the 3 youngest boys before he will consider reconciling with my mother. It turned out that the twins are indeed the husband's biological children. In response, I evicted my husband, who now lives with his parents. My father and I are discussing the possibility of me moving into his larger house while he sells my grandfather's house and gives me the money to buy a new house elsewhere and start a new life without clinging to the past. My husband is furious because I revealed that he will actually have 7 children instead of 5 and that I will be entitled to half of his business. My husband started an HVAC company a few years ago, and I played a major role in setting it up during the first 5 years, managing the office and temporarily quitting my teaching career to help him. All marital property in our state, including businesses, is divided equally, and since the house is still in my father's name, my husband won't get any proceeds from the sale, nor will my mother, as inherited assets don't need to be divided, and it's unlikely my mother will get any alimony after the divorce, as our state doesn't have a no-fault divorce. A month had passed and I was still deeply distressed and angry with my mother, especially because she was hypocritical, calling me names and humiliating my family, when her own behavior had been far worse. I also felt a strong resentment towards my ex-husband, because he had been intimate with both me and my mother. Sometimes he would join us in bed just minutes later, and less than a week after I became pregnant, he got my mother pregnant. Although I initially thought it was cute and fun to share the pregnancy experience with my mother, she was carrying my child's half-siblings. This situation has made me lose trust in men and not believe that they can remain faithful. I have hired a lawyer who is well versed in the law from the company that handles our financial matters, with my father funding the costs. My 2 twin brothers, 1 sister and my ex-husband's entire family have cut off contact with me, so my children have essentially lost all their grandparents except for my father, my 2 uncles and 1 aunt on my side and my husband's 3 brothers. As a result of this unfortunate situation, I have developed ulcers and digestive problems, so I plan to see a doctor. In addition, I have been receiving treatment since the first week of January, and I have also offered family therapy to my 2 adult children, but they are currently receiving individual therapy. My 14-year-old daughter knows about our divorce and the reasons behind it, and she is naturally angry with her father, which makes it difficult for me to send her to him at the weekend, although I think she is old enough to have an opinion on the matter. I don't want to damage her relationship with her father. I tell my children that they can love their father even though he hurt me. However, my 2 oldest children have completely cut off contact with him. I will not reveal the real reason for the divorce to my 2 youngest children until they are adults. Everyone agreed not to reveal anything until they were old enough. As to how I turned a blind eye to the ongoing affair, my husband admitted to me that they had done it in my mother's church office, in the car, in motels, and after we had set up the company, they started doing it regularly in his office, and they also did it in our home after I had returned to teaching. What hurt me most was that I came home a day early due to pregnancy discomfort while my father was away on business or I was not at home. This is how I discovered the affair, and I know that if I hadn't caught them, this has been nagging at me. What I find hard to accept is that the grandmother of my children and the father of my children are indifferent to the impact on our family. What is most difficult for me to accept is that my own mother betrayed me and has been doing so for years without the slightest concern for the consequences. When it all came to light in front of her, my husband confirmed in a mediation session that the affair had started when I had obviously upset him and not talked to me. He, my mother, comforted him, they became close, he liked it, and has been pursuing her ever since. He even mentioned that he wanted to divorce me, but knew he would lose her and that she was better in bed than me, so he stuck with me. He told me that I was just a temporary substitute in the midst of all the betrayal and blows. This sentence kept me awake all night. Update: I have made considerable efforts to get an immediate divorce, but my ex-husband, through his legal representative, has informed me that he suspects that the child I am currently pregnant with is not his, and he insists on a DNA test immediately after the birth of the child, as he refuses to support a child he does not consider his own. Furthermore, he claims that I had multiple affairs during our marriage, and that I knew about his ongoing affairs, which he claims I used as an excuse for my infidelity. None of these allegations are true, but I almost wish they were, because it would make the divorce proceedings a little easier. The process: my lawyer basically warned me to prepare for a long drawn-out divorce litigation, and that my ex would use every ruthless means to make an already difficult situation more painful. I will answer some of the questions raised here and in the previous post. My twin brother strongly resembles my mother's side of the family, especially my uncle and grandfather. They don't resemble my father, but interestingly, they don't resemble my husband much either. On the other hand, my son clearly resembles my soon-to-be ex-wife, the only child who clearly resembles him, although my 14-year-old daughter has inherited the shape of his chin, and when I was angry, my father convinced me by reminding me to consider the well-being of my children and other children before taking any action that might deprive them of their parents. It was this awareness that saved them in the days to come. I was still angry, and that anger eventually led to the revenge party. In retrospect, I wish I had privately informed my brothers of the egg donor's infidelity. As for my 38-year-old sister's alliance with my mother, I'm not quite sure of her reasoning. We haven't gotten along very well since high school, but I don't really care for her position on this matter. My twin brother's discomfort with me disclosing this news to him is understandable. According to my father, they are currently undergoing treatment, and my father advised me to give them time, implying that they may just be taking out their anger on me as the messenger, and that since I didn't explicitly tell them that my ex-husband could be their father, they could do the math themselves and deduce that they are the same age as my son, and that he was more forthcoming with them than my father was, explaining that the DNA test was to prove infidelity, not to disprove that they were his sons, and that whoever's sperm fertilized the egg, they were his son, no matter whose sperm fertilized the egg. I don't believe my egg donor and my soon-to-be ex-husband waited until he was 18 to have sex, but I'll let my father sort it out in the divorce proceedings. I do have a contingency plan in case they decide to cohabit, but my lawyer doesn't think my ex would be stupid enough to do that, given the escalating hostility of the divorce proceedings. I didn't mention earlier that my husband is 4 months younger than me. My birthday is in December and his is in April, and he'll soon turn 40. We were in the same graduating class from kindergarten to high school, so he's not exactly a full year younger than me, but some people speculate that way. I'm focusing on pregnancy, children, and the future for now. I may provide an update after the divorce is final, but I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. Update: I spoke to my aunt today, who happens to be the sister of my egg donor. She told me that there is a history of infidelity in our family, especially on their side. My grandmother was unfaithful for a long time, but eventually reconciled with my grandfather. My aunt herself has experienced multiple emotional betrayals, but still remains married to my uncle. She tried to attribute my mother's infidelity to genetic factors. I found her explanation so ridiculous that I couldn't help laughing, as I couldn't control my reaction. My aunt is now very upset with me because I'm taking the egg donor's side and not considering her reasons for cheating. My father and lawyer have advised me to hear her side of the story, so I'm still considering whether to do so. It may be before we meet in early March to determine custody. Edit: I should point out that I asked my aunt if my mother had inherited the infidelity gene, who she might have passed it on to, and how my grandmother had passed it on to her 2 daughters, which in hindsight may have been the cause of her unhappiness. To be honest, I've lost sympathy for this matter. In a previous update, my ex-wife accused me of cheating and demanded a DNA test for our unborn son. My aunt revealed that there was infidelity in our egg donor's family and tried to argue that it was hereditary. My father and I were encouraged by our lawyers to meet with the egg donor to obtain evidence. Closed. This update delves into the answers we got from her about her choices. I met with my egg donor dad and our lawyers last night. Basically, my egg donor admitted that she knows her actions were wrong, but enjoys the attention. She finds sex stimulating and enjoys the thrill of it. She continues to have a relationship with my dad because she values their stable financial situation and carefree lifestyle. She wants to maintain the marriage. She admits that she deliberately had sex with my ex-husband after every encounter with her to see if she could conceive a child with him as my father's. She also admits that she was pleased to know that my ex-husband preferred having sex with her to having sex with me. She then announces that she will move into my ex-husband's new home and invite the children to live with them. The twins have only visited once since the affair came to light and have told her that they don't like my ex-husband and won't accept him as their father. She believes that once she marries my ex, they will eventually change their minds, and then she will be able to have a family. I couldn't help laughing and told her she was delusional and needed to see a shrink. I also told her I would apply for a restraining order to prevent her from contacting my minor children. She called me a jealous and ungrateful person and said I should be grateful that she didn't throw me out and let me live. She claimed I should be grateful that they didn't throw me out when I was pregnant. She even had the nerve to suggest that I should be grateful that she made my husband happy when I couldn't stop his divorce and left me a broken single mother. Then she told my father that she had suffered from postpartum depression after my birth and that his disregard for her had left her feeling lonely, which she believed proved her hatred for me and her affair. She admitted to having had multiple affairs from 6 months after the birth of my brother until New Year's Eve, and said that she would have continued doing so if I had not revealed everything, so that my 38-year-old sister and 34-year-old younger sister might not be my father's children either. My father was even more devastated and furious, but we had a lawyer present at the time and her confession was recorded. My father has contacted my siblings, but as expected, my 38-year-old sister already knew this could happen because my mother told her about the 2 affairs when the twins were born. She knew they might not be my father's children, but she kept it a secret from us. My dad was more devastated by this than losing his relationship with my mom. I don't know if their relationship can be restored. I really don't know what's wrong with my 38-year-old sister. My 34-year-old sister refuses to do a paternity test and confirms that our dad will always be her father. My dad fully accepts this decision. I have already informed my ex-husband through a lawyer that I intend to apply for a protection order tomorrow to ensure my children. If my mother is present, they will not have to go to my ex-husband's house. Neither of them have made any effort to find new housing, so it seems she intends to move in with my ex. I really don't want my child to be put in that kind of mess. He hasn't responded yet, but honestly, I don't care what he wants. P.S. My family and our lawyer are aware of the social media posts, but my ex and the egg donor are in a very bad position in the divorce proceedings. I've been a bit vindictive in the divorce proceedings and have deliberately made them feel uncomfortable by exposing them to the public so that they can continue to dwell on their predicament and know that not only our local community holds a negative view of them, but the whole world does too. Furthermore, I have my sister's permission to share what happened last night. I don't particularly care for my 38-year-old sister's opinion. Update: I gave birth to my son in early April. I'm relieved to report that he is perfectly healthy and I have not experienced any health issues throughout the process. At the end of March, I successfully obtained temporary full physical and legal custody of the child. My 14-year-old daughter asked me for family therapy, which would include her and her father. At first I opposed the idea and resisted, but in the end I decided to accept the therapy for my daughter's sake, because I knew she needed to deal with everything and hoped that during the therapy process I would gain a deeper understanding of the relationship between my ex-wife and the egg donor, thanks to the tasks assigned by the therapist. My ex-wife revealed some details that I am convinced are true. According to my ex-wife, my mother tried to seduce him before we were even adults. It happened when the egg donor was a youth group leader. I was 15, and he was a few months shy of turning 15. She offered private tutoring, because he needed it. When he was 14, they kissed, and that was the limit of their physical contact. This meant they made out on these secret dates until he turned 18. Just as their first child was born, my mother convinced him to ask me out and go on dates with me so they could continue to meet without arousing suspicion. I went through all kinds of emotions. Devastation, realizing my entire relationship was based on a lie and that my husband had never really loved me, but also relief because I knew I had nothing to do with their affair. I found this plausible because when he asked me out, I had to ask my parents for permission to go on a date. The rule at the time was that you couldn't date until you were 16. My mother seemed to support me, or at least I thought she did. We started dating immediately after he turned 15. That fit their timetable of not having full sex until he was 18. At the age of 8, I think it was kind of a birthday present from her to him. My 22-year-old daughter and 20-year-old son still don't communicate with him. He has come to terms with this and understands that they may never be able to re-establish contact with him. As for the twins and me, we have now fully reconciled. After my last conversation with my aunt, I decided to sever contact with her and my grandmother. I was tired of my aunt's repeated attempts to get me to contact the egg donor. My aunt kept trying to get me to contact the egg donor, which annoyed me. Unfortunately, my grandmother was also facing her own problems, as she was showing early signs of dementia. Although I could put up with her derogatory references to the egg donor, some of her other actions and comments created unnecessary stress in my life. My sisters, aged 34 and 40, and my 2-year-old helped me to plan the birth. My ex-husband knew about the plans, but he also knew that I would prefer him to meet his son in hospital after the birth, when my health allowed. On the day of the birth, he agreed. My 34-year-old sister brought her 14-year-old and 5-year-old to her house, while my 42-year-old sister stayed with me in the delivery room. Surprisingly, my 14-year-old needed to pick up something from school and contacted my ex-husband to do so, as he was still on the official pickup list, even though he was no longer there and should have delivered the item to my sister's house. My egg donor received the call and accompanied him, but he refused to let her come along, as I didn't want the children around her. Apparently, she drove with him to the store and then to my sister's house, where she had a major meltdown in the front yard on the lawn. My ex decided to break up with her, citing the fact that she brought too much drama into the situation to continue. She became enraged, physically attacked him and started destroying things in my sister's yard. The police were called and my egg donor was arrested for domestic violence. As a result, my ex, my sister and I all obtained protection orders against her because she was unstable and in a bad way. My ex moved to an apartment near his HVAC company. My 14-year-old daughter chose not to forgive him and said she didn't want to be with him at the moment, so only the 5-year-old visits my ex. He comes over to my dad's house to spend the night with her every Monday and weekend night, while I take the other kids and twin brother out for dinner. We have been connected through a custody app and are scheduled to revisit custody arrangements in June. I intend to continue fighting for full legal and physical custody until my ex can prove that he is receiving the necessary treatment. Still have strong negative feelings towards my ex-husband, who has tormented me from the age of 15 until recently. However, I resent the egg donor even more, as she has caused harm to us all. Despite my emotional turmoil, I do feel some sympathy for my ex-husband, and I sincerely hope that he can recover. For the sake of my young children, regarding the other divorce proceedings, my ex-husband agreed to an immediate uncontested divorce, and I will receive half of the property, including my share of the business. I decided to sell the shares to an employee of my ex-husband who wants to become a partner. My ex-husband was happy with this arrangement, and I was desperate to cut all ties with him. My father successfully sold my old house without even putting it on the market, as our real estate agent knew a family who was looking for a house. Meanwhile, I started looking for a house about 45 minutes from my father's. As for the egg donor, after the twins made it clear that they would never live with her and didn't want anything to do with her, especially after her arrest, she started feeling guilty and blaming them. She is currently fighting for a divorce from my father and communicates with my 38-year-old sister only through her lawyer. During this whole ordeal, she had a reality check when my mother called her and blamed her for not helping her out of jail. During the 45-minute call, it became clear that my sister had been having fertility problems and that we lacked communication, which caused her stress and anxiety and a decline in self-esteem. This vulnerability made her susceptible to manipulation by the egg donor, who boosted her self-esteem with positive attention. However, when my sister refused to bail her out because she wanted to save money for another round of IVF with her partner, she realized this manipulation and asked me for help. We slowly started talking again and she supported me in this. In addition, she has re-established communication with my father, which I am happy about. For him, because it has allowed them to reconnect. Incidentally, a few weeks before the birth of our son, we had a DNA test which confirmed that he is indeed my ex-wife's child. This has brought me a great deal of happiness and joy in my life. With the support of my other children and my father and siblings, I was able to get through this difficult time, and I am sure they will continue to help me. I hope that, considering the trauma that my egg donor's actions have caused him, I will be able to get better. As I mentioned before, this will be the last update on this matter, so I would like to express my gratitude for all the kindness, love and support.